Hey y'all, it's Jasmine, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new, welcome. My flows are about accessibility and meeting where you are in your yoga practice. And if you're coming back, thank you so much. I appreciate you for always coming back to flow with me. Today's practice will include some of my favorite poses, and we will also be utilizing blocks in the first full round. As the practice builds, we will remove the blocks if you like, or you can continue to use them throughout today's practice. So, if you haven't grabbed your blocks, this is a really great time to go and grab them, and then meet me back here in tabletop position. So, as we begin our warm up here, we will start in a tabletop position. Again, we have our blocks here for our practice. And with our tabletop, we're just going to do my favorite good old cat cow. So, we're here and we're going to check our alignment as it's key to keep our body safe. So, think of your hips over your knees and then also your shoulders over your wrists. So, not spilling over, but having a nice alignment here. And so with our cat cow, we're going to drop our bellies and look towards our eyebrows here as we are in our cow position. And then exhale, rounding your spine, belly button to your spine here for cat. Now do a couple of cat cows on your own here, focusing on your breathing. And complete a couple of more cat cows on your own here. Inhale, dropping your belly. Exhale, rounding your spine here. So, what we're going to do here, we're going to take our left leg out on our mat, and then we're going to sit back as if we're getting into a child's pose. And a nice fluid movement here, sitting back and then getting back into that tabletop position. So, we're just going to flow in between the two. And on our last one, let's just sit back here for a little bit. Feel all the feels in your body. And also, if you want some extra cushion, you can grab a small blanket off of your couch or a towel and place it under your knee here. Return back to tabletop and then repeat on the opposite leg. We're sitting back and then going back to that tabletop position. All right. And on our last one here, we're just going to sit back and again feel all the feels. Returning back to tabletop position here, and we're just going to sit up a little and allow our hips to rotate and rest here. And then meet me back into our tabletop position. And then we're going to do one of my favorites, some hip circles. So again, imagine if you have a pencil or a marker implanted in your belly button, and you're going to draw circles. So moving your hips in a circular motion to one side, and try to make those circles as big or as small as you like, whatever feels good to you. I imagine my circle's got some squiggly lines, but you know what? That's all good. And then we're going to pause here at the top and then go into the opposite direction. Again, we're drawing circles, creating some fluid movement for our hips here. And then meet me back into a tabletop position. So with this move here, we're going to do a knee to nose on in a tabletop position. This pose will come back later into our flow. So I like to show it here in our warm up so it's not too foreign when we see it later in the practice here. So what we're going to do is we're going to straighten out our left leg here. And then we're going to lift up that back leg. And then we're going to bring our knee towards our nose. And then think of the rounding of the spine in our cat pose here. And then straighten back out and do a couple of more knee to nose. So, this feeling of the rounding of the spine, when we're in the downward dog position, I still want you to take that feeling of the rounding of the spine here later in today's practice. So, one more, and then return back to tabletop position. And then we're going to repeat that on the opposite side. So, putting your right leg out and then bringing it towards your nose with a round. And keep going. You're like, girl, we're doing ab stuff this early. Yes, we are. Alrighty. And then one more. Round that spine. And then we're going to go into child's pose here and give our wrist a little break. So sitting back into our child's pose. Returning back to our tabletop position here. And we're going to untuck our toes, push our hips back, and then we're going into downward dog, the first one of today's practice here. And then inhale, looking towards your hands. You're going to walk your feet to meet your hands here, and you can have a nice bend in your knees in this forward fold. Pressing all four corners, we're going to round up and then inhale, lift our hands up here, and then put them towards the side for our mountain pose here. And so I'm just going to turn to the actual front of the mat here for our last warm up move. I really enjoy this move, and I have a huge mirror in my room, and I'm constantly like hinging at the hips and going in a circle. So I wanted to share this with you all. So we're here with our hips width apart. That is something to say, y'all. Say it 10 times. And so we're going to inhale, sweep our hands up. And then we're hinging at our hips here. And then we're just going to take our arms and make a circle here. So hinging at the hips, creating some type of fluid movement here, just to have some fun on the mat before we get started. This is a really nice way for me to get moving and feeling all the feels here. And then we're going to stop here at the top and repeat into the opposite direction. So again, hinging, creating this fluid motion. Oh, I feel so good. All right. Hands up. And then you can gaze up at your thumbs here and then exhale, hands to heart. All right, so let's flow. So, again, just to kind of go over what the flow will be about, we will go over some of my favorite poses today. Make sure you have your blocks as we will use them through our entire first flow. And then you would have the option to use them at your own discretion or use them throughout the entire practice or do what you want at this point. However, they are here, they are a tool, and they are here to support you. So we will do 3 rounds of some of my favorite poses and then close it out with a Shavasana. So let's go. So, what we're going to do is we're just going to get back into the center of our mat here. Inhale, sweeping your hands up. Exhale, rain it down to forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, stepping back to downward dog. Inhale, sweeping your right leg up, bending at your knee to open up your hips here. Straighten out your back leg, and then knee to nose. So think about rounding your spine for the knee to nose. Inhale, sweeping your right leg back up, and then step into a crescent lunge here. And I'm going to have my blocks here to help me bring the earth closer to me, pushing my hips forward. Exhale, bringing your hips back, straightening out your front leg for a half split here. And so our next pose will be our pyramid pose. So we're going to bend our front knee here and then step up. We're moving our blocks with our hands. And then we're going to step our back leg up for a pyramid pose. Feel free to check in with your alignment and what feels good for you. Using your blocks here, we're going to bring ourselves up by placing our hands on our right thigh. And then we're going to step into an high lunge here. There we go. Open up to warrior two. So check your alignment, heel alignment here as we're into our warrior two. This feels really good. Flip your palm and reverse your warrior. Front knee is still bent. And now we're going to straighten our front leg for a reverse triangle here. And then we're going to bring our top hand down for a more traditional triangle pose. And then you can bring your block a little bit closer to you. Another option is having your hand here on your hips. For our triangle pose, bend your front knee again for warrior two. And now we're going to place our front hand on our thigh and then bring our other hand upward for an extended side angle here. Twisting your chest open. And now we're going to get back into our crescent lunge here, but we're going to take our blocks and then twist open to the right here. Bringing our hands down. And we're going to do a supportive vinyasa. So we're going to get into a tabletop position, bringing our crown forward, lowering down to the front of our body. Inhale up for a low cobra. And then we're going to push back into a tabletop position and then push our hips back for a downward dog. In a downward dog, inhale, sweeping your right leg up, bending at your knee here, opening up your hips, straighten that back leg out, and then knee to nose. Back to a three-legged dog, and then step into your crescent lunge here. You're using your blocks to bring the earth a little bit closer to you. Bring your hips back, straighten out your front leg for a half split pose. Now we're going to bend at our front knee here, and then we're going to step our back leg up for a pyramid pose. Now, taking your blocks to help support, you're going to take your hands and crawl up your left thigh and lift your hands up for a high lunge. Open up to warrior two, checking the alignment of your feet here. Reverse your warrior. Straighten out the front leg for a reverse triangle. And then triangle pose. Rebend your front knee for warrior two. And now we're placing our front hand and lifting our back arm up for an extended side angle. Transition to a crescent lunge. And then we're going to open up to our left side here for a nice open twist. All right, and now we have our supported vinyasa. So finding your way back to your tabletop position here, and we're gonna reach our crown forward, lowering down to the front side of our bodies. Low cobra, back to a tabletop position, and then we're gonna push our hips back and up for a downward dog. So now we're moving on to the flow two. Will be the same movements here. However, you have your blocks as an option, or you can flow without them or when you need them. So in our downward dog here, we're going to inhale, lift our right leg up, open up, bend that knee to open up your hips, straighten back out, knee to nose. Inhale, sweeping your leg up, step into crescent lunge here. Half splits pose. Pyramid. Bringing that back leg up. Bringing yourself up for a high lunge here. Almost fell, y'all. Did you see that? All about balancing and actually just knowing where you are today. Open up for a warrior two here. Front knee is bent. Checking our heel alignment. Reverse your warrior. Reverse triangle. Straighten that front leg up. And then our triangle pose. Back to warrior two. Bending that front knee. And then extended side angle pose. Coming down here to our runner's lunge here. Back knee could be lowered or it could be lifted. And then we're opening up to the right side of our body. Full or supported chaturanga. Inhale, cobra. Inhale, sweeping your left leg up, bending at your knee to open up your hips here. Straighten it back up, knee to nose. Inhale, sweeping your left leg up, stepping into a crescent lunge, low lunge if you prefer. Half splits pose. Bring your hips back, straightening out your front knee here. And we're breathing. It's always nice to slow down. Bending your front knee and stepping your back leg up for a pyramid pose. Bringing yourself up to a high lunge. Open up, warrior two. Checking that alignment as always. Reverse your warrior. Reverse triangle, straightening out your front leg. And then triangle pose, twisting your chest open. Back to warrior two, bending your front leg. And then extended side angle pose. And we're going to cartwheel down to a runner's lunge. And then open up to the left side of your body. Full or supported chaturanga. Inhale, cobra. And then exhale, downward dog. We're in our last pose here, y'all. And I'm sweating today. I love that about me. Inhale, sweeping your right leg up, bending at your knee here, straightening your back leg up, knee to nose. Inhale, sweeping back up, stepping into a crescent lunge. Half split pose. Stepping into pyramid pose. Lining up your front leg. High lunge pose. Open up to warrior two. Reverse your warrior. Straighten out your front leg for a reverse triangle pose here. And then triangle pose. Reaching down to whatever feels comfortable for you in this pose. Warrior two. Extended side angle pose. This one feels pretty good. And then we're in a cartwheel and open up to the right side. Full or supported chaturanga. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, downward dog. Inhale, sweeping your left leg, bending at your knee to open up your hips, and then straighten your back leg out, knee to nose. Inhale, sweeping your leg back up, and then step into crescent lunge. Pushing those hips forward. Bring your hands down to your blocks or mat, and then into a half splits pose. And then we're going to bend at our front leg, bring our back leg up for a pyramid pose. Using our front leg to climb up, half lunge. Open up to warrior two. Reverse your warrior. Straighten your front leg for reverse triangle. And then we're in our triangle pose. Warrior two. And then bring your front arm to your upper thigh and lifting your opposite arm over your head. Extended side angle. Cartwheel down. And then open up to the left side of your body. Full or supported chaturanga. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, downward dog. Now we're going to drop our knees back into a tabletop position and bring our big toes together and sitting our hips back for a child's pose because I need it. Yes, this is a very energizing practice for sure. So sit and relish in your practice today. You did a good job. And take your deepest inhale for today's practice. Exhale through your mouth. And then meet me back into a tabletop's position. And we're going to repeat some of our practice or warm up poses for our cool down today. So we're going to bring our left leg off the mat here, And we're going to move with a fluidity of sitting back into your hips and then back into a variation of a tabletop position. So flowing between the two. And on your next one, you're going to sit back into your hips here and feel all the goodness. Then return back to a tabletop position and repeat on the opposite side. So creating some fluidity with this movement as you sit back into your hips and then back to this tabletop variation. And we're breathing as well. And the next time you sit back, let's sit here for a little bit, sink into this pose. And return back to a tabletop position here. And I'm just going to come up for a little bit. Again, just to kind of give my wrist a break with some nice wrist circles here. And feeling all the good stuff, y'all. Feeling it all today. And then we're going to return back to our tabletop position here and just do some hip circles. So remember, you have that pencil or beautiful color marker. The color of my marker is a lilac, little purple, little lavender lilac. And I'm going to make some big circles with my lilac marker. And one more, and then go to the opposite direction, making your circles. And they can be as big or small, however you feel today. And then return back to our tabletop position. We're going to move into our Shavasana pose here. So you can get there however you like. I'm just going to sit down and then bring my legs around on the mat here. And then find a comfortable laying position here. And I'm going to give you a couple of options for today. Shavasana, you can be in a more constructive rest here with your knees touching, or you can have your legs straightened out for more traditional Shavasana. I think today I'm going to go into a little constructive rest here with my knees touching and my feet flat on the ground. And before I go silent, before today's Shavasana, I just again want to thank you for getting on the mat with me and doing some of my favorite poses and wanting to remind you before and maybe giving you something to think about in your Shavasana. Yoga blocks and other props are very essential to our practice as yogis, as yoga teachers. We really want everyone to feel that they can come on the mat and they can enjoy a practice of their own. So using blocks is just another really great way to really just make the practice yours. So thinking about that while you're in Shavasana, and think about what are some ways that you could make your practice more accessible to meet you where you are. So I'm going to go quiet for this Shavasana. Feel free to close your eyes or have a soft gaze looking down at your belly button, and then just melt into your mat. Take your deepest inhale of today's practice and exhale out your mouth. If you have more time to sit in Shavasana, I always encourage you to. But if you are coming out with the rest of us, and if you had your eyes closed, please open them and begin to bring yourself back to your mat, to your practice. This can be done by wiggling your fingers and your toes, and then just opening your eyes and reconnecting with your surroundings here. Thank you for flowing with me in today's practice. I really hope that you were able to incorporate blocks into your practice if you haven't been, and to know that they are a really great tool to meet you where you are in your practice. Until next time, bye.